Well, hello there. It's your favorite fresh air junkie here, Nikki Hardy, and welcome to the Wildly Known Life podcast, where I'm all about helping you get into nature and hang out with God so you can take a breath, calm the heck down, and reconnect with yourself and who you're created to be. Because after all, the goal isn't to escape life, but to live the one we have more fully alive with God. I'm an author, speaker, retreat leader, and science nerd who loves to weave story, scripture, and science into prayers and practices we can carry into the woods, our morning routine, or a regular Tuesday afternoon to help us listen to God, our souls, and what His sacred creation has to say. And this week, I've got a treat for us all. We have a guest, my friend and best-selling author, Jennifer Dukesley. Being what she calls an accidental farm wife, she is someone who knows and loves nature, and it's clear her faith is deeply rooted in it. Last week on the podcast, I asked us why God created sleep. And today, as Jennifer helps us love our mornings, I kick off with that same question. I ask it back to Jennifer. And whether you call yourself a morning person or not, she's going to help us love our mornings because, as she says, how we begin our days impacts how we live our days. Okay, friends, let's dive in. Let's get wild. Well, hello, Jennifer. It is so good to have you on the podcast.
It's fun to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
Well, for those of you that don't know Jennifer, you're in for a treat. Jennifer, why don't you tell people who you are? And I'd love for you to explain where you are, because I know the place where you live is so integrated in all that you talk about and write about. And yeah, just tell everyone a bit more about yourself.
Sure. So I am a speaker and author of 9 books now, and I'm a farm wife. So I love nature. I love the outdoors. I have learned so much about faith by living on this farm. Like, this is a 5th generation family farm. We grow corn and soybeans. We grew 2 beautiful humans on this farm. I'm an empty nester now. And the thing about this farm, we're in Northwest Iowa. My nearest neighbor is like a quarter mile away. There are more pigs in this county than people. A traffic jam is the neighbor's cattle getting out and blocking the road. I mean, that's what it's like. But the thing is about growing up on a farm, you read through the scriptures, you read through the gospels, and you hear the stories that Jesus tells the people, like on the Galilean hillside or different places. He talks about seeds, types of soil, vine dressing, herds, rootedness, all these kinds of things. And his audiences would have understood that because they would have had dirt underneath of their fingernails. That was a very agrarian culture. It was a culture very attuned to the ways of nature. Here on the farm has deepened my faith because it's not just a metaphor to me. I see it playing out in a real place. It was interesting to me when I wrote my last book, Growing Slow. I discovered that the 5th most common noun in the Old Testament is eretz, and that is a word for land. The 5th most common noun. So the outdoors, the land, is not just a backdrop for the stories of scriptures. It's like a character in its own right. And yeah, here on the farm, Northwest Iowa, I get to see that lived out day after day.
I just love that. And I love this question I've been kind of mulling over. Somebody asked me, tell me about the land that raised you.
I love that.
And this idea that, we're so impacted by our environment, both physically and emotionally and spiritually, and this connection we have to the land. But we're not here really to talk about land. We're here to talk about mornings and sleep and loving our mornings or not loving our mornings. And you've got a new book called How to Love Your Morning, which, for those of you that don't know, Jennifer and I are in a group of authors and writers and speakers together. And so I got a firsthand behind the scenes look at this book coming into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lot of conversations, didn't we, about kind of, there are some people who are just like, oh yes, I'm definitely a morning person. And there are some people who are like, I'm not a morning person. But this is for everyone, isn't
That's
it?
right. Yes. That's so cool, Nikki. I love that this is a very full circle moment. And I know this is sort of insider, so those of you listening, you get to be on the inside. But I was on what's called the hot seat, right? So we take turns on the hot seat inside of this group that Nikki and I are in. And it's so cool because we get to like just ask these questions that maybe we wouldn't throw out into the wild. We just,
Yeah.
are on Facebook, but among this people of authors and thinkers that we trust. And I'll never forget getting to share the concept of this book and could see that it was making sense to the people who were listening, whether they were self-described morning people or not. It was at the very, very front end of it. And even in that moment when there were early birds in the little squares on Zoom and there were night owls in the little squares on Zoom, I'm like, all these people are morning people, every single one of them. Because the thing is, it is not about a chronotype. And if you're wondering what a chronotype is, it's this natural inclination to wake up at a certain time or to go to sleep at a certain time. So you might be a night owl chronotype if you stay up till midnight. You might be an early bird if you get up at 5. But I say with firmness that it does not matter that you are a morning person anyway, like all of us. And it's not because of time, it's because of God. It's not a clock thing, it's a God thing.
That's so, so helpful. And for anyone who's listened to last week's episode of the Wildly Known podcast, where I talk about sleep and ask this question, like, why did God create sleep? Why did he differentiate between night and day? And as you point out in your book, Jennifer, and as we read in the creation story, he light was the first thing and morning was the first thing, and it keeps repeating. And there was evening and there was morning. There was evening and morning on the first day, there was evening and morning on the second day. But I keep thinking, well, it's so counterintuitive for the entire population of the globe to go to sleep because we are unprotected, we are unproductive. And it's like, why did God create us with this circadian rhythm where we are responding physiologically and hormonally and all these things to the day and night cycle over and over and over again, 365 days a year, when he could have made it a constant day?
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an interesting... Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, clearly it's, we were made for rest. He embodies rest himself. I think a lot of times people see rest as the last thing to be done. Like you get to do rest as a reward. But if you look at the original like creation story, on the seventh day, God rested, but that was the humans' first full day on earth. So before they got to work, that day of rest was their first day, which I think is remarkable. He's modeling something to us. He's teaching something to us. I find it really amazing that like even the psalmist in Psalm 127, it says, God grants sleep to those he loves.
Yeah.
He loves us so much that he desires us to have the gift of a good night's sleep. And there is something really beautiful about sleep. Sleep gives us dreams. And dreams can be kind of like an internal therapy. I mean, sometimes they can be kind of like a nightmare too, but there's a lot of things that happen in our minds during sleep that repair our bodies, that give us a fresh start, that help us kind of get going again. I mean, God is so creative in the way how he built us, like food too, the same way. I mean, he could have just had us go to a gas pump and like here you go. Every few days, just, put the gas in and then go on about. But instead, he's like, no, I'm going to give you something beautiful. I'm going to give you flavors and textures. So I think that we can see sleep as a gift, not as this thing that gets in the way.
I completely agree. And it's our opportunity to trust him that everything will be
Yes,
okay. And as you say, everything will be better in the morning because
that's
the
right.
mercies are fresh every single day. Now, I would say that I'm a morning person. So I'm one of your people that's like, I'm a morning person. I'm not necessarily one of your archetypes that's the morning doer. And we can talk about those in a bit. But Al, my husband, would definitely say he's not really a morning person, but you say that everyone is a morning person.
Hmm.
And you've talked a little bit about that, but and we've talked about creation. And I think I love that God has designed us in this way. He's designed us to respond to daylight hours and how we used to just go to sleep soon after sundown and wake up with the sunrise. But we as humans have kind of destroyed that about that, really a little, really starting in the Industrial Revolution. And you unpack that a bit. Will you help us understand like what the Industrial Revolution did to our circadian rhythms?
Hmm. So, a long time ago, the way that we went to sleep and the way that we woke up, it was like more predictable. It
Mm,
really aligned with the way that the earth was. It was aligned with nature, the earth's spin, and there was light and there was dark, and we woke with the dawn and we went to sleep after dusk. I felt that when I was away from technology in Haiti, a couple times where it's like I was tired at night and I was up with the literal roosters when it was time. And I felt so refreshed following these rhythms. Well, for those of us who live in fully developed countries that have been, we've been affected by two um, like rhythm altering ways of life. One of them was the Industrial Revolution, as you mentioned, and then the other was artificial light.
mm,
So, with the Industrial Revolution, we were getting a lot of things done. There were factories, there was work to do. And during that time, the idea that of sleep was just, it was not seen as a gift. It was seen as something
mm,
in the way. It was seen as a waste of time. It was
mm.
seen as a sign of laziness. And we can see that holding over now, where sometimes we wear, like, well, I only need 4 hours of sleep, or I can wear my
Yeah.
busyness like a badge, right? So there was that. And then gaslighting came along in the 1800s, and this was on the streets. So the gaslighting on the streets meant that the people out there, they could stay out later to work and then walk home in some light,
Yeah.
or stay out for play, whatever you want. And then along came the light bulb. So it wasn't like, now it wasn't just outside, it was like inside. Our work and all of our activity wasn't just restricted to daytime hours. You could just keep on going, keep on pushing.
Mm,
And I've read some data that suggests that since the Industrial Revolution, that we've lost on average 3 hours of sleep a night that we used to get pre-Industrial Revolution, which is like, no wonder we're so tired. No wonder.
mm. And it impacts us physically and
Hmm.
emotionally, and that will always spill over into our spiritual health.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really does. So I don't know if you know this about me, Jennifer, but when I was at university, I was a zoology major. And one of my projects in my final year was to assist a PhD student looking at photoperiodism and migration in Japanese quails. And
Wow.
what that meant was that he was researching how these quails' feather pattern and molt pattern and hormone patterns changed with heat and daylight hours changing. And so I had to take blood from 100 Japanese quail once a week. But what we see is that, and we know this from, we see birds migrating, but what we don't see is that their whole feather pattern has changed in order to set them up in order to fly such distances, and their hormone has changed their body composition and all this kind of stuff.
Mm.
And we have removed what our bodies should naturally be doing in response to those daylight hours
Mm-hmm.
by, like you say, the light bulb, blue screens, all these things. All these
Yeah,
things.
it was really driven by natural light. It was really driven by
Mm.
seasonal patterns. So even in winter, like in Iowa, where, it gets, I mean, in the wintertime it's like dark by 4 o'clock. And I mean, man, up further north, it's even harder, right? But before all of that, we actually had two separate sleep patterns before the Industrial Revolution. And it's called biphasic sleep. Have you ever
Mm.
heard of that?
I have, but explain it.
Okay, so when you would be in biphasic sleep, which was the typical way of sleep, you would have the first sleep, and that went from like 9 to 11, and then there was a period of wakefulness, and that was all like a 2 hour period, and then might even get up to like tend to household tasks or socialize or do whatever else you're doing in bed. But that's that. Then there was this other sleep then before you woke up. And like as Christians, we see it in the Bible because it's where you see things like the watch
Yeah.
In the Psalms, like Psalm 63, I think, where it says, "I think of you, Lord, through the watches of the night." Then you've
Mm.
got like monks rising around midnight to commune with God. It's all like these
Yeah.
patterns from biphasic sleep. But that really went away. And then this monophasic, like one sleep block, is what happened. So that's all because of the electric light bulb. And that's just really disrupted like the natural circadian rhythms.
Mm.
And it also, of course, reduced the amount of time we actually get to sleep.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is so powerful in this book, you say, no, we're all morning people.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's not about waking times or how kind of much we love mornings, but it's a God thing. It's about these new
That's right.
beginnings. But you also say how we begin our day impacts how we live our day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is such a truism that we know in our bones, but we need reminding of constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you help us kind of unpack beginning our day well with
Mm-hmm.
these archetypes. Will you tell us more about the different archetypes, the different personalities, if you like, so we can kind of go, oh, that's me. I'm one of
Absolutely.
those.
Yeah. When I started writing this book, I really intended to find kind of a one size fits all routine that would fit everybody. But I interviewed hundreds of women primarily about their morning routines and discovered pretty quickly that that was not going to be fair to do at all. I mean, there's books out there that will tell you if
Yeah.
you're going to be a morning person, then this is the time you get up and these are the things you do. But that I just felt that wasn't fair at all. And for one of the reasons why is seasons of life, but
Mm-hmm.
also the thing that motivates us to wake up. Like, what is that thing that's like, this is what I want to get up and do,
Yeah.
even if I don't identify as a morning person yet?
Yeah.
So I came up with these 4 archetypes based on all of these interviews and all of this research. One of them is the daybreak doer. This is the kind of person who is going to wake up and is motivated by the tasks ahead of them for the day. They're really excited to get to work. They're probably people who are more productive in the earlier hours of the day. So for a morning doer, a daybreak doer, it's important to take a minute to organize your mind around the tasks at hand. Now, the risk here is that a daybreak doer can just run headlong into work and never take a pause and just say, let's have a little bit of quiet time. But it's really helpful if a daybreak doer gives herself a chance do a few things, to get her mind organized, to get her list organized, so then she can go spend some time with God and do some other things without being distracted.
Yeah.
Then there is the morning mover. This person really is motivated by bodily movement. Maybe it's a HIIT workout, maybe it's a couple mile run, maybe it's morning stretches, a walk around the block with your dog, whatever it happens to be, but it just really kickstarts your mood and metabolism. Then the next one is the meditative mind. This is a person who immediately wants to have what's viewed as that traditional quiet time with God, with prayer, Bible reading, maybe a devotional time, something like that. Which, by the way, everybody I'm hoping will find some time to do that in their day, especially in their morning. But they want to do it right away. Very cool. So then finally, this is the one that people find most surprising, is the social seeker. And this is somebody who wants connection right away as the day begins. Think about, for instance, if you know a child or if you have a child who immediately when they wake up, they have like all of these stories that are pent up inside of them that an intolerable number of hours that need to come out. Or, a child who needs to be held and hugged. They need some kind of connection. What I discovered is that a lot of people didn't know they were social seekers until that person was gone. So a lot of widows that I interviewed recognized that they were indeed a social seeker. But now that their person was gone, the house was just really quiet. It was difficult. So they are now needing to be, to give themselves permission to make connection and immediate start to the day, whether that is texting their children, having a gratitude text string, maybe even getting on social media and wishing their friends a happy birthday or whatever it is, being really intentional about social connection. What I think is so cool is that God is the embodiment of all of these things. He is the ultimate daybreak doer. He is moving. He is a morning mover. He is clearly the ultimate meditative mind. Yeah. And he is a social seeker. And if you're a social seeker and you don't have someone in your life, good news. Jesus wants he is socially seeking you out, and you have him always.
So that is so helpful. Will you just name the 4 again? The morning mover.
Morning mover, daybreak doer, meditative mind, social seeker.
Social seeker. So go on. I want you to take a guess. Which one do you think I am?
Oh, I think...
we haven't spent...
I think you might be a morning mover.
I would say I am. Even though it's not like I don't kind of get up and put my workout gear on. I do like to, when you say what motivates you to get up in the morning, that's my cup of tea. I like to get up, have my cup of tea and, just move slowly. I don't necessarily need a lot of social connection in the morning. I don't like to think about my to-do list. So I know I'm not those, but I do like to get out in fresh air, hopefully in fresh air and nature. And it's interesting that I mentioned this in last week's episode. One of the things that has started to help me sleep better is to sniff. I call it sniffing the air in the evening, is to just step outside the back door, deep breath, look up at the stars. And it's just a way of putting myself to bed, kind of metaphorically speaking. So starting and ending with that, that's really helpful.
I love that.
So if we know our archetype, if we think, oh, I'm a morning mover or I'm a daybreak doer, how can we set ourselves up for the day? You mentioned a few things that each of those can do, but what would you suggest?
Yeah, so if you're a daybreak doer, you might, take your first 3 minutes of the day mentally preparing for the workday. If you're a creative doer, you might write some poetry or maybe like play the piano first thing in the day, tidy up the kitchen. A daybreak doer, once they get to that quiet time, it's really helpful if they have like a separate notepad there because their mind is thinking of things, almost like a distraction list. Like, okay, that just came into mind. I'm going to set that over on this list over here so that I can really focus in and zero in on God. Yeah. And then also to bring a reminder of God's goodness and his work alongside you in your doing, even on your to-do list, to have a gratitude list right beside it, or like an overall intentions list, like what are the mantras or intentions that relate to my work in this world and how I want it to be like a part of God's will. So that'll connect your doing with your being and with God's presence in your life.
That's so helpful.
If you're a mover,
Hmm.
it could be, maybe you're the kind of a person who used to like run half marathons, and that is not working anymore. You might be injured. You might be have chronic pain. You might be just unable to do that for a variety of reasons. And I think there's ways to think through like morning stretch routines. You can find these things on YouTube. You can do breath work. You can it can be a very worship filled experience, but morning moving also might even be like, dancing with the kids. Like if you've got little kids who are morning movers, like doing something with some energy, getting outside with the kids first thing in the morning, which can also be a very worshipful experience out under this morning sky as that sun is rising up, or maybe it's already way up in the sky
Mm.
by the time you wake up. But just to be there and be present in nature and you're moving. And I think that that's for me as a morning mover myself. It's important that I have those pieces of my day already waiting for me, because even though I am a morning mover, sometimes I'm like, but I don't want to do that. I can't, I don't have time. So if you're a morning mover, to set those tools out the night before, your running shoes, your workout clothes, what have you, in a place that will be beckoning you as soon as you wake up.
Yeah.
If you're a meditative mind, in the same way, if you know that you really have a better day if you start your day meditating and prayerful activities, be sure to set those tools out beforehand. Have your Bible open. Have a good idea of what you're going to be reading the next day. It could be a couple lines in a gratitude journal. If you are in a really busy or difficult, chaotic season, maybe it means listening to the Bible on audio as you
Yeah.
drive through rush hour to work. Maybe it means as a family, you're working on one memory verse a week in the morning as you get ready for school and work and those kinds of things. Or if you might be in a season of life where you have more flexibility and you have the luxury of longer quiet times, which can be a really beautiful thing, obviously, as well. And then finally, if you're a social seeker, obviously any kind of conversation you can have with people in your own household. I had a grandpa who was a social seeker, but he was such a social seeker that when my mom and dad used to visit, he would go into their room at about 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, dressed and ready to go, and sit at the edge of the bed and start in where he left off the night before. He would say, "Well, son, I was thinking about," and then he would go on and on. Meanwhile, my mom, a young, married woman, was like mortified and would wrap herself up in her quilt as grandpa, the ultimate social seeker, went on and on and on and on and on. So even if you're a social seeker, promise me you won't do what Grandpa Dukes did. But you might, check up on friends on social media to send birthday wishes. Maybe you're also a morning mover. Like make that a part.
Yeah.
I know some ladies that I interviewed in town. For the last 20 years, they've been walking 2 miles together every morning. What a wonderful thing for a social seeker to do.
Yeah, those are all really helpful. And you do have a quiz or a
Mhm.
way for people to find out which one they are if they're not sure, don't
That's
you?
right. You can go to howtoloveyourmorning.com/resources, and there's a button on that page that says take the quiz. And here's a fun part. You don't have to put your email in there to get the results. You
That's
just take the quiz and I'll give you the results. And then hopefully you'll be intrigued enough that you'll want to go pick up the book so you know how to nurture that type.
that's wonderful. Oh, there is so much packed into this. We've got all the things that I love to talk about: science, nature, faith. It's just all so helpful, and I hope everyone listening is just encouraged that they are a morning person, and that even if they don't feel like a morning person, that there are things they can do to start small to make their mornings impact their whole day, which is
Mm-hmm.
just Just wonderful. Now,
Yeah.
here on the podcast, we have two traditions when I'm interviewing. Well, one is I do every week, which is to end with a blessing or a prayer or a practice that people can take into the day. So I'd love for you to read us out in some way, and you can explain that. But I always end with a question as well, which is, Jennifer, what is helping you live wildly known at the moment?
So I'm thinking about that both literally and figuratively. And I'm thinking about that literally when I think of being in the wild. And I don't know if that's exactly what you mean, but I am a true outdoors woman. I love I love being outside every single day. I love standing underneath a big sky at any time of day, especially the morning. I love walking around our section. It's like a 4 mile section around the land. I love to just be in touch with nature, and it keeps me in touch with the wild, and it reminds me that I am a part of it. And that makes me seem known and loved by God. I really felt that when the Artemis astronauts were out in space, and as busy as they were in their morning routine, which included getting woken up by NASA with a cool song, trying to take sponge baths, eating weird food, but also every day they took time to look out the window and see the beauty in front of them. And I think that's a great example for us to remind ourselves that we're a part of something bigger. So I guess that is my answer. It is this idea of being outside among the wild things and knowing that I am one of the wild things.
You definitely are. We all are, Jennifer.
That's right.
We love you for it. Well, when you close us out with one of your lovely liturgies that are scattered throughout the whole book, but you've got one for us, haven't you?
Absolutely. I thought it would be interesting to share with you. It's called a liturgy for the first 5 minutes of the day. It's at the end of chapter 3. And I think the first 5 minutes are really an important time because they do sort of shape the day. They shape our attitudes and our minds. So maybe this would be a liturgy that you can borrow as you face your day. So a liturgy for the first 5 minutes of a day. Today I awaken with renewed hope that even my small morning acts are imbued with meaning. Tidying the kitchen, grinding the coffee beans, texting a friend to help her find her smile, feeling a breeze on my skin as I step outside, flipping my Bible open to where I left off the day before. These rituals are sacred because you, O Lord, are in them with me. In these first 5 minutes of my day, quiet my heart, God, and grant me an awareness of nature's rituals, which you built into our world. Fog settling in the backyard, sun warming a world once more, the silent opening of a morning glory, responding to its own circadian rhythm. Now, as I step forward into a new day, prepare my heart and body for the work you have given me to do. Awaken me to my need for you. Awaken me to your love. Awaken me to the strength you alone provide, as I aim to reflect your goodness to a weary world. May my actions reflect my choice to love you with all of my heart, soul, mind, and strength. I give you this day and all that it holds. Amen.
Amen. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your wisdom and helping us to love our mornings. Where can people find you? I know they're going to be wanting to leave like, I want to stay in touch. I want to get the book. I want to do the quiz. I want to do all the things. I want to get the Bible study. Where is all that?
All of the resources for the book are at howtoloveyourmorning.com and howtoloveyourmorning.com/resources. If you want to connect on social media, I am Jennifer Dukes Lee everywhere on social media.
Wonderful. Well, you are a gift to all
Thank
of us.
you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for spending time together on the Wildly Known Life podcast. This podcast is growing quietly, mostly by word of mouth. So if this episode spoke to you, subscribing is the simplest way to keep the conversation coming. And leaving a short review, just a sentence or two, helps spread the word so others can discover it. Thanks so much for doing that. It means so much to me and to the podcast. And it's amazing how few people actually go ahead and subscribe and leave a review. So if you do, or if you have done, thank you. And don't forget, the podcast is just one voice of this work. The deeper conversation and connection happens over on Substack, where I share behind the scenes reflections, practices, and notes I don't say out loud here, and where you can feel a little more part of our community. You'll find the link in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you there. Before you go, remember, sometimes the best thing we can do for ourselves is to step outside, take a deep breath, drop our shoulders, and ask what our wildly wonderful God has to say, because that's where coming alive in our life and faith begins. See you next time, my friend.